Hello, everybody. Welcome to the NBA Front Office Show. The regular season just days away. We still have preseason action going on and a lot of news and notes to get into on today's show. Before we dive into everything, make sure if you haven't done it yet, if you look on the YouTube channel and you don't see yourself subscribed, go ahead and click that button. Make sure you turn on the notification bell as well. While you're at it, go ahead and like this video. I know you haven't watched the full video yet, but just click it. Assume that you are going to indeed like this. So click that like button as well for us. We are trying to get our subscribers up as much as we can. And don't forget, if you are a podcast listener over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, we'd love it if you give us that 5-star rating and review. Keith, joining me as always. One of the things we're going to talk plenty of basketball today. Of course, our thing is we don't, scream into our cameras and throw hot takes at you or anything like that. But, She-Hulk, before we dive into basketball, I haven't touched base with you on this. How are you feeling about She-Hulk and where things have gone?
Yeah, I've not watched the one that came out today, I believe was the finale.
I have not either.
I have not seen it yet, so no spoilers in the comments for anybody else who's maybe waiting on it or saving it up or something. I've enjoyed it. It's funny. I had a friend of mine was like, it just feels like there's no stakes. And I was like,
yeah,
you can't have big stakes in every single one of these shows because otherwise you're good. Like then everything becomes an Avengers level event. Right. So like I have no problem that it's a little bit smaller stakes. I want to see where they're going. I did like the way they introduced Daredevil. I thought that was fun. That's not a spoiler because everybody knew he was coming in the show, I think, especially if you know where we are on the MCU. But yeah, I'm very curious to see how through the finale they tie it in further. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's not my favorite one of the TV shows. And then I'm hoping maybe later tonight to watch Werewolf by Night.
Oh yeah,
I have not watched that yet either.
Yeah, I got to check that one out as well. She-Hulk, it got immensely better when Daredevil arrived, and I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the show itself felt a little weak to me, which is ironic given it's a show about an incredibly powerful human being, but it's felt a little weak. And then when Daredevil arrives, it suddenly gets so much better, and you're like, I just want to watch his show. I just want to watch this.
Well, it's coming.
It's coming.
And 18 episodes of it too.
I'm so excited. That's going to be awesome. I can't wait for that. But I do want to kind of wait to see if the finale ties everything together and it all make kind of like WandaVision took some time and we had to say, okay, just be patient. And then by the end, everything tied together and it was great. So I want to reserve judgment for that. But so far I've been a little underwhelmed with She-Hulk overall. But in any event, that's it's something where when I watch the finale, I guess we can give a more complete analysis or breakdown of it.
Yeah, it's funny. I took a little time this week. I forced myself to take a full break because I was so behind on shows. There's just so much to watch right now that's out there. And I was able to get caught up on House of the Dragon. I get caught up on Rings of Power. Those are both really, really good too. And then, now it's like we've got all the shows we watch as a family that are I'm already behind on them. And with the season starting next week, I'm just going to let the girls go nuts, watch them. Just don't delete them. I'll figure them out some Saturday morning or something.
I was going to say our TV watching window is very quickly closing because the regular season is just days away. And then where we're going to be. But speaking of which, back to our day jobs. Draymond Green, we finally find out what the Warriors are going to do as a result of him punching Jordan Poole and that video being made public and everything that came along with that. He will be fined. He will not be suspended. He is expected to rejoin the team and should be a go for the regular season opener against the Lakers coming up on the 18th. So that's the end result here. Is this correct? I mean, the video coming out, it feels like put this into a different category, but I think this would be a pretty typical reaction had a video not come out about, showing what had happened.
Yeah, I think if we didn't have the video, it would have been a fine for, I don't know, breaking team rules or something like that, or, team policy or something. And we would have all moved on. Seeing the video, I wouldn't have a problem if they gave him a 1 game suspension and just basically said, "Hey, you're out for 1 game," and it would have been a pretty impactful game, right, to miss ring night,
Mhm.
and then that it was funny. Somebody said, "Do they like still have him come get his ring and then he has to leave, or how would that work?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." Or do you just do a Draymond ring night like 2 nights later? I was listening to another show. Nate Duncan and Danny LaRue, who are both in the Bay Area and go to a lot of Warriors games, and they were talking about how's the crowd going to react to him because he is a very popular player there, but so is Jordan Poole. So that's going to be something interesting to watch on that opening night. But yeah, I think it's one of those where I think the Warriors just want to put this behind them as much as they can, move forward and get it done with. And now I think they're moving in that direction.
Yeah, it does feel like we're all kind of moving on from this. Maybe it'll become a bigger topic once the Warriors start to figure out what they want to do with Draymond in terms of his long-term role with the team. We know that he could be a free agent next summer, so we'll see what decision making gets done there. But personally, I think he definitely should have been suspended for 1 game. Maybe I'm biased there for no reason though.
Perhaps give LeBron yet another ring by getting himself suspended. So,
That's
or not
right.
a ring, but a win, I should say.
That's right. That's right. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the Suns. Cam Johnson was considered untouchable, reportedly, in Kevin Durant trade talks. This feels like madness to me.
Yes.
Like, why would you draw? Look, and I like Cam Johnson. I was wrong about Cam Johnson in the draft. I was one of those people that was clowning the Suns for drafting Cam Johnson, and he has been very, very good. I've become a fan of his game. If you're drawing the line at Cam Johnson and a Kevin Durant trade, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. What I want to know is was it like DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, and Cam Johnson, and 3 picks or something like
Yeah,
that? Is that where it's like, all right, come on, we got to keep something. Let us keep Cam Johnson. Like, is that
true.
how that went down? Or is it truly like they were like, all right, well, we would like Cam Johnson. And then the Suns are like, nope, start over. Like, I find that very hard to believe. But,
Yeah.
teams have done weirder stuff in the past in trade talks. So I'm not really sure how to process this one other than if I ever found out that Cam Johnson kept my team from getting Kevin Durant, I'd be pretty upset.
Yeah, and that's not to say that's what's happening. Like, we're not
Sure.
hearing, "Oh, the deal was done,"
Yeah.
and the Suns then said, "Cam Johnson is untouchable." And that's
Yeah.
not what's going on. So, like you said, it
Exactly.
it could be something where that was just the piece they tried to hold back in the
Hmm.
negotiation or something like that. So, we do have to keep that in mind. But a little strange that that's what's out there now, and maybe a little bit concerning if you are a Suns fan, if it indeed was a situation where they just said no, under no circumstances, we're not trading him. Kevin Durant we're
Yeah.
talking about here. Come on.
Well,
Uh,
also, if that's the case, why is his extension not done then? Right? If
yeah,
that's truly where it is, like if he's untouchable, well, then you're not going to fool around and let this get into restricted free agency this summer. This is the team that gave Landry Shamet a contract extension last year. Like, of course, you'd get this done, but yeah, for now, it's just kind of looked at this and raised an eyebrow a little bit. I'm like, someone's either fibbing here or not telling the full story.
more on the Suns. Jay Crowder reportedly would prefer, or the Heat believe that Crowder would prefer to go to Miami and join them. But we've talked about this. It's tough to see how Miami gets Jay Crowder. I think you would have to get him a third team involved,
Yeah.
and then that complicates things that much further.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just not a direct trade that makes sense for the Suns salary matching wise. It's just something where they're gonna have to figure that out there too if they want to go that direction. There just isn't a deal as you look at it where you're like, yeah, there it is. There's the trade. So I'm not entirely sure where this one goes. On this, I can't see the Heat putting together, the 3 or 4 guys money wise to go make the trade. I can't see the Suns having really any interest in Duncan Robinson and all the money left on his contract. That doesn't make sense. So yeah, I'm not sure how we're gonna get there on this one. I quite frankly think we probably aren't. I don't know unless there's some kind of, like you said, 3-team trade. This could be though. Let's regroup down the line
Yeah.
in a couple months. Let's see. And then maybe like a Dwayne Dedman gets thrown into a deal there, because I think Omer Yurtseven is gonna play a lot for this Miami team in the regular season, either next to Bam Adebayo or behind him. And that could make Dedman very tradable. And then it's Dedman and one other player, and you're
Mhm.
basically there. So maybe that's the way it goes. But yeah, a little confusing to say the least.
Yeah, as of this point. But again, you never know what can change and open things up. Staying on the Suns for one more story here, the Suns would reportedly like Jordan Clarkson from the
Mhm.
Utah Jazz. What do you think about it? Does this make sense as a target for Phoenix, as a guy that they could use? Does he fit with them?
Yeah, I think so. I think they could use another bench scorer. Cam Johnson, we just talked about. He's gonna be in the starting group this year, so they're a little light coming off the bench for a team that is considered to be a contender. They are getting Dario Saric back this year. That's huge for them for front court depth. But then their other kind of main reserves, Cameron Payne. All right, he's been a little up and down. He was pretty good a
Mhm.
couple years ago, not so good last year. Landry Shamet, I'm not the biggest fan there. Plus, he's not the kind of guy you're going to kind of throw the ball and say, hey, lead the second unit and get some buckets. Damian Lee, I do like, but I don't think he's ready for that kind of role. So little light on bench scoring. So yeah, Jordan Clarkson would make some sense there. I do wonder, could you make if Duncan Robinson was just owed a little bit less money? Could you get something with Miami in
Mhm.
Utah where it's like, send Duncan Robinson to Utah and, uh, Jordan Clarkson to Phoenix and Jay Crowder to the Heat. But it's just Robinson, the 3 years after this year, just it's so
Yeah.
much that I just can't imagine that's going to be how that plays out.
Yeah, the Heat would have to toss in some draft capital in order to get the Jazz to take
Yeah,
on
they
that
don't really have
that
it.
salary. Yeah, that's the problem. And so trying to come up with these deals, it's really tough right now. Now, again, we've been talking about this a lot though. Things may shift drastically around the league during the season. We were already talking yesterday about the Charlotte Hornets. You get an injury to LaMelo Ball. Oh, does that push them
Hmm.
into tanking territory? And suddenly you're looking at, what can we do to go get Victor Wembanyama? What can you do to go get Scoot Henderson or somebody like that in the draft? We don't know who else will do that. Who else may suddenly decide, you know what, we're pulling the plug on this thing. Let's bottom out. Let's try to get what projects to be a generational talent in the draft, and
Hmm.
then that shifts the entire landscape of the trade market. So I do wonder if teams like Phoenix, like Miami, like Utah with Clarkson, are they just kind of waiting for the dust to settle here in the first few weeks, and then they can start really exploring things again once the landscape is a little bit more clear?
Yeah, absolutely. And then it sounds like a very long time, but you only have to get about 2 months into the season, which is going to be roughly about 20-ish games, probably a
Mhm.
little bit more than that, probably closer to like 30 games or so. And then almost everyone who was signed over the summer becomes trade eligible. So then, on that December 15th date, things open up a lot wider and you can really do other stuff. But yeah, it is, both those teams obviously looking for players, and I'm just not sure there's a direct connection on any of those. Because I also, I guess maybe you could do Crowder to the Jazz, but I think if you're the Jazz, it's kind of like, all right, yeah, we'll take Jay Crowder and then probably try to flip him in another trade, but you're gonna need to get probably a pick out of Phoenix in a deal like that if it was just Crowder for Clarkson
Right.
straight up. So maybe we'll see.
All right, we need to get into an unfortunate injury here. Not as bad as it could have been, but Marvin Bagley has a bone bruise and a sprained MCL, going to keep him out for about a month here for the Detroit Pistons. This Detroit team, they went and they picked up Bogdanovich. Do you think they are hoping that they make at least a play-in run here this season? Are they ready for that?
Yeah, I think they would like to be in the position where they are playing meaningful games post trade deadline. I think they want to have those young guys playing for something down the stretch versus just all right. We're going to start sitting guys and rebalancing, and yeah, we lose a handful of games, doesn't really matter. I don't know that we'll see. I mean, we might see if they're bad enough, some outright tanking for them. But yeah, I think their idea is, let's see if we can be playing meaningful games after the trade deadline. And I think they're also looking at it with like Bogdanovich. If we're not, we'll just flip him to another team then, and we'll get something, whether it's a couple seconds or maybe a first if he's playing well enough. I also think they want to put how do I put this? Like real true NBA talent around the kids instead of just kids upon kids upon kids. Because then you get the sense of, all right, Cade Cunningham drives the lane, defense collapse, kicks it out, and it's just another brick shot. Where does that go? Kick it out to Bogdanovich, it's probably going in. And I think that gives you a rebalance there. But yeah, the Bagley injury is tough, right? We've talked a lot about his contract and how it was weird to both of us, but he did play good basketball for them. He was going to be a big part of that front court rotation there in Detroit. It was going to really kind of be him, Stewart, and Jalen Durant at the primary their center spot for them. Now I think they'll probably play smaller a little bit and then just kind of run with that. But yeah, definitely disappointing that he's out.
Yeah, certainly. There was also an interesting tidbit about the Pistons out there that they would have been in the Ayton market had Durant
Yes.
not been available, which makes sense. We had pegged them as a potential landing spot for Ayton. It doesn't appear they were going to get him, given that the Pacers had their deal matched. What was it? I think it was 3 minutes that the Suns matched it in. It was something ridiculous like that. But it was matched basically immediately by them. So it's not like the Pistons were going to get him, but clearly they believe enough in Durant to not pursue a guy the caliber of DeAndre Ayton. Didn't think that in terms of their roster build, it made sense to go after Ayton once they got him. So I think that says a little bit of something about how they view Durant.
Yeah, absolutely does. And they're, clearly committed to their kids because the veterans that they're bringing in are support guys around those guys. They're not bringing in guys over top. I saw some people say, doesn't adding Bogdanovich kind of stagnate Sadiq Bey? And I don't think so. I think they play together. My guess is they both start alongside Cunningham, Ivy, and Stewart, at least to open the year. And that's where you go with that group. And I think that's fine. And it's not like Bogdanovich is really blocking anybody from getting minutes. Maybe Isaiah Livers a little bit, but that's a second round pick. You've got to see more out of him anyway. But yeah, I think this is a good, smart roster building here. And they played some team stuff. Notably, they really played the Celtics stuff last year. And I think they're going to do what they can to, like I said, be in the mix and playing those meaningful games late in the year. But I think they'll also be a team that will be very quick to pivot if it's not going great for them at the end of January, that they'll switch gears and move into let's be kind and say development phase.
When a lot of teams right now are taking their hands off the handlebars and just letting go and saying let's crash this thing and let's tank, the Pistons are essentially doing with these veterans is they are providing training wheels for the young players, hoping that they can eventually allow them to learn how to ride the bike. Other teams are just hoping to destroy the thing so that they can wind up getting, well, potentially generational talent, 7'5" guy that can shoot threes and dribble and do everything. God, I can't wait for him to get to the NBA. Right. That's going to be incredible.
Yeah, it's going to be must-watch TV. I said today, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. A little bit of quick tangent here. I think the San Antonio Spurs need him more than any team in the league. There's no star power on San Antonio. I love Keldon Johnson. He's one of my favorite players in the league. I think Josh Primo's pretty good. I think Devin Vassell's pretty good. But none of those guys are stars. Like the Spurs are starless right now. They could really use Victor Wembanyama in a big way, and if not him, Scoot Henderson, and move on that way.
Well, fans of every team that are right now looking to bottom out disagree with you, aside from Spurs fans, because everybody wants to get him, and everybody says, no, we need this guy, right? But I think you do have a point there because the Spurs don't have a lot. And I also don't see the Spurs as like a major free agent destination either. So it's pretty important. Like it was big for them to get Tim Duncan, of course, because that pushed them into 2 decades of relevance and incredible play and championships and all of that. They need to get that guy in the draft once again. And as we've talked about this in the past, that sometimes you're better off, or at least this is the prevailing theory going around the NBA, that if you're going to get a star player, right now, you're better off getting a foreign-born star player because those guys appear to be more prone to sticking around with whichever team they land with. So that could set the Spurs up for the foreseeable future and take them into this next iteration of potentially success if they can be the team to land Wembanyama. So I'm not going to disagree with you on that, but I am sure that there's some fans of
Oh yeah.
not of tanking teams that are not the Spurs that are probably yelling at their screens right
It's funny how fans are like now, if like we were like, Team X has no stars, all their players they're kind of nice, but they're not that good. We would get yelled. They'd be like, we have player, this guy and this guy and this
now.
guy, and they're all great. But if they say it, right? I mean, but that's how it works, right?
Yeah,
It's like, teams become like almost like a member of your family. I can insult them, but you better not.
right. Yep.
You're gonna get some words out of me. Just a quick note to go back to the Draymond situation. Mark Stein just tweeted that all signs continue to point to the NBA leaving all Draymond Green discipline to the Warriors, who elected to fine but not suspend Green for punching teammate Jordan Poole. NBA's general policy team should handle practice matters. And there is in the NBA operations manual, it is that all players agree to. It's basically kind of like a unbecoming conduct policy where, anything happens, of a physical altercation, the league could step in. The league could step in here and say, hey, we're suspending Draymond because this isn't how we want our players to act. But generally, those kind of things, like Mark noted, the league wants to leave to the teams. Let them handle it and go from there.
The big difference here is the video got out. That's really, and that's, you're going to get people that are saying, oh, well, they definitely should have suspended him. What's the league doing? They're showing favoritism to the Warriors. No, this is typically how these things go. Just the difference is we usually don't get to see what happened like we did here with the Draymond situation.
And quite frankly, they're not usually quite as bad either. They don't
That's
get
also
quite to
true.
that same level. But
They
it's definitely it's I have no issue with the league saying, hey, you got it, good, do what you think is best in this situation.
Yeah, in most cases, it's not a haymaker thrown to the head like we saw in that situation. But again, this is also kind of how the NBA tends to handle things. I don't think this is like favoritism being shown to the Warriors or anything like that.
So. Yeah.
The Mavs in talks to sign Facu Campazzo. He's fun to watch. He's not the most efficient player in the NBA or anything like that, but he's very fun to watch. Reminds me of a little bit throwback to Lakers legend, the catalyst Marcelo Huertas. But Facundo Campazzo is looks like he's going to wind up with the Dallas Mavericks. I can't say he's going to play a ton of minutes. He was with the Nuggets previously, but I mean, add a little bit more fun if they throw him in there during garbage time, because sometimes he pulls off some pretty exciting stuff.
No, it really does. My guess is the Mavs said, well, JJ Barea is retired. We traded Trey Burke. Jalen Brunson left as a free agent. We have to have an undersized guard that doesn't always shoot it great on the roster, and that's where Campazzo lands in. So let's see where that goes. And obviously Jalen Brunson turned into a very, very good player, and JJ Barea was a key guy for them for a number of years. But fill the Mavs quota of undersized guards and bring in Campazzo. And there's some thoughts that I've read somewhere that I don't know if they played together in Europe or they just know each other, but apparently has a good relationship with Luka. And hey, sometimes guys get jobs because star players, really like them and they like having them around. So, I don't really have a huge issue with that. And my guess is this will be something where if Dallas needs to cut him later, they'll just waive him and move on. That again from our buddy Mark Stein was the one who's been all over that news. No surprise with Mavs news that Mark Stein's all over it.
Absolutely. Sometimes guys even get jobs because they're related to star players. We see that happen too. But really, like even when I go back to my coaching days and everything, and I look at when I was looking for players to add to the end of my bench, right? A guy who's probably only going to get in garbage time, that sort of thing. That dynamic, how the player gets along with everybody else on the team, that matters a lot. That matters a lot. Now, that's not going to be your deciding factor for a starter or anything like that, but that dynamic is incredibly important when you're looking at your end of the bench guys. So would you say that he knows Luka and is friends with him and stuff like that? That can actually be pretty important for somebody that isn't projected to get a ton of minutes for you, and how they get along with everybody else therefore matters that much more.
You just summed up the entirety of my high school soccer career right there. That was the only reason why I was on the soccer team was because I had fun and I was friends with everybody else on the team, and I'd work hard. And I also knew I wasn't very good, and I didn't campaign to play any more than the brief times that I did get.
made your cameo appearance out there, and but it's important though, right? That you have that. 'Cause, like, if you
Yeah.
went in there and said, "I'm so frustrated, I'm not starting," and you
Mhm.
were negative and you were upset and all like that can bring a whole team down. And so it's important when you look at
No.
stuff like this.
Yeah, for sure. Let me tell you a quick story. This will be very quick, but I
Huh?
think it's funny. My first ever game in high school, I got in. The game was out of hand. I think we were up 6-0, and they put me in. They played it back to the goalie. So I went. He put me in at striker. I went up to press the goalie. Goalie reared back, booted it directly off my face and into
Oh.
the goal.
Oh.
It was the
So
only goal I ever scored in my high school career.
but you scored a goal.
Yep. It was yeah, it was a memorable one. And then then the coach immediately took me out and they did a very this was a long time ago, so a very preliminary
Concussion
concussion
protocol.
protocol check there, but it was yeah, more of like, are you okay? Can you see? And then that was it. But yeah,
Now
that was my lone goal in high school.
did you brush it off and celebrate?
Oh yeah.
Or yeah,
I
because
followed it in because
you
I
have
was
to
like,
act
yeah.
like your face is just like
Oh my
stinging,
god, I had tears, like
but
full on tears in my eyes, and yeah.
you have to pretend like it doesn't hurt at
Yeah.
all
Oh, of
because you
course, yeah.
scored, right?
And I followed it in because I was like, I'm never gonna get this close to scoring again. Like, I'm gonna make sure this thing goes in. And yeah, and then everybody went crazy. And then a couple people were like, did that go in off your face? And I was like, yeah, it did. Yeah. Later on, around the girls, it was a perfect header into the back of the net. They just
That's
didn't
right.
tell them how it was set up.
It was on a cross. You was
Yeah,
a
exactly.
diving
Yeah.
header placed
Yeah.
perfectly up into the
Well,
upper
I didn't want
corner,
to
right?
lie. I just left it at perfect header and let
There
them
you go.
build the image in their mental image there.
Well, that's the way we have to approach these kinds of situations. But all right,
Back to basketball.
let's talk a little more basketball. Don't get me going on soccer stories. Pacers signed Trevelin Queen to a two-way contract. Pretty good guard.
Mhm.
Has a nice mid-range game too. He spent some time with the Lakers a couple seasons ago, and yeah, like he's a guy who's bounced around and back. I believe he was with the Rockets at one point, wasn't he?
Was with the Rockets last year, then the Philadelphia 76ers signed him, actually gave him 330K guaranteed. And then they waived him earlier this week as part of their starting their roster churn process. People have asked online a bunch of times, and I'm sure some of the people watching and listening are wondering too, why like teams are signing guys and then waiving
Yeah.
them the next day and signing a new guy. It's 99% of the time this is roster stuff around getting their affiliate player rights for the G League team. So that's what you're seeing. But in the case of Queen, the 76ers knew, all right, he's probably not going to stick here. They cut him free a little early, which is nice because it allows him to find a job before the preseason wraps up. And yeah, this is the kind of flyer the Pacers should be taking right now. You're in a rebuilding year. Bring these guys in, whether it's on a two-way or at the end of the bench, and just cycle through and see if somebody pops and really you have a find, and then you go from there. So I think this is good work.
Keith, your ability to know every player and every one of their stops along the way is absolutely incredible. Like if there was ever a game show made out of the little game that Inside the NBA does with Charles Barkley, who he played for, you would go on that. You would dominate. You would
I
dominate that show.
I admittedly get frustrated when they don't know. It
Yeah,
gets me a little angry, but it's okay. It's okay. I'll play our own version here
that's
with
right.
us.
Well, here's another one for you. The Rockets signed Darius Days. Again, I'm waiting for you to make up a name to try to throw me here, but the Rockets do sign him. Keith, tell us about him.
Yeah, a guy out of LSU, rookie, played pretty well in summer league for the Spurs. Yeah, he had a couple highlight plays. He was with the Heat earlier in the preseason, and then the Heat waived him as they kind of did some roster shuffling of their own, and the Rockets claimed him off waivers on his two-way. So how that works, he just goes right into the Rockets open two-way. They only had one two-way spot filled with Trevor Hudgens. Is their other two-way player? So they've got the two of those guys now coming in there. And again, Days is interesting. He's more athlete than basketball player right now at the moment. But if you're Houston again, you can kind of throw him some minutes, maybe occasionally he'll probably play quite a bit with the Rio Grande Valley Vipers of the
Mhm.
G League. With them, I imagine he'll be down there. And they've had some success down there. The Rockets use their G League team in kind of fun ways. Remember when they really kind of amped up to like, hey, we're going to take layups and threes and that's it.
Mhm.
With the Vipers, that is literally all they did was take threes and layups. They played at a ridiculous pace. They basically raced up and down the floor off makes, misses, turnovers, everything was get it in, get it up the floor, get a shot up. It was like, I think their goal was to get shots up within the first 5 seconds of the shot clock. So not even 7 seconds.
5 seconds or less.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. It was like get it up there, and and it either needed to be a three or it needed to be something inside the paint. And it was but that's what they do. That they're using that as a kind of a strategic playground, I guess, test out new strategies and the like down there. I don't know if that's changed and tweaked. That was obviously when Daryl Morey was running the whole show there. But yeah, and then Days reunites with his LSU teammate Tari Eason, who I think is going to be a fun player to watch this year for the Rockets. He really gets after it defensively. Ton of energy for him. He was a mid first round pick this year. Just another guy in the pile for Houston of all these young players.
Yeah, they're going to be an exciting team to watch. Definitely one of those teams that you want to check in on League Pass. Not that you're expecting them to win a bunch of games or anything like that, but they could be a lot of fun on any given night. And I think I've mentioned this on here before, but League Pass, they cut their price by a ton, like 60% cheaper for League Pass this year. So if you haven't checked it out yet, definitely an opportunity to go and get League Pass, and you can stop illegally streaming games or whatever and just go and watch basketball. And I love that you can pick what announce crew, so you can kind of check in on the different ones. And I like seeing the different commercials from around the country too.
Yeah, the local commercials trip me up, and then obviously the ones whenever I'm watching a Boston game on League Pass, I get like a little homesick sometimes. Where I'm like, oh man, like I remember this place. Like there's this tire company that's been doing commercials on Celtics games since I was a kid, and every time one of their things pops up, I'm like, oh man, like Sullivan Tire, I love it. But yeah, it's fun. Houston too. They have a lot of games that start in the 8 o'clock window, which a lot of times pop right as those early games are going into halftime. So it's kind of going to be a really fun team to flip to check out over there. Just they've got a lot of interesting young kids.
Yeah, they absolutely do, Last year, I opted for the version of League Pass that doesn't have the commercials in it, and I kind of missed it. Yeah. I got the in-arena feed, which had some benefits.
Sure.
But I kind of miss seeing the commercial from all over the country. But
I like the in-arena feed when it allows you to pick it up early and you can see the guys warming up. That's always fun.
And I liked when they would show the halftime show with, I forget the guy's name, but he's got the dog Scooby. They were in Vegas and they performed at the Lakers game as well. But that's always a blast. That's can't get enough of that one.
The one I don't like is the Amazing Sladek. He's like the old guy that climbs up the chairs and all that stuff. It stresses me out. I fear for his life every time he does his act. I don't watch that. I don't like it.
It gets your anxiety going a little bit there.
Yeah.
Theo Maledon waived by the Rockets. Now you were making a case for why somebody should claim him.
Yeah, he's super young. Young guards. They sometimes take a few years to really figure it out and develop. And there's a player in there. We've seen he's got some skill. This is not a guy who's completely can't play. For the Rockets, it's just they've got a million young guards. They have Jalen Green, they have Kevin Porter Jr., they still have Eric Gordon on the roster. They drafted Ty Washington, so they didn't need another young guard, especially one they didn't invest anything in. But teams should claim him. He's only a 1.9 million salary, so either cap room or a very small trade exception, you can claim him. I'm looking at you, San Antonio. You're rolling with Trey Jones and nothing else as far as true point guards on that roster. They're talking about Josh Primo playing some point, which again, that's fine. Blake Wesley maybe playing some point. Those guys are more natural twos. But yeah, get him some on-ball reps, but it's not going to hurt you to bring in Theo Maledon, have him play there a little bit too. You can mix him in, and if you have to cut a guy like Keita Bates-Diop, I get it, right? He's going to be 27 this year. It's probably not much of a pop coming from him as far as prospect wise. So yeah, I would look at Theo Maledon if I was the Spurs, because you got to make up that ground somewhere too anyway, as far as how far under the salary floor they are.
All right. And the Jazz have not traded Jordan Clarkson yet. We talked about him a little bit earlier. They still have Mike Conley, they still have Malik Beasley, but they did add Micah Potter on a 2-way contract, which these kind of signings, they can matter. I was talking about this recently on my Substack, cheap plug, trevorlane.substack.com, about how like the G League it's becoming a bigger and bigger piece of the puzzle for NBA teams. And if you can find a player that you can eventually add to a two-way contract, these guys, if they hit, it's found gold, particularly if you're in a situation like the Jazz are in right now. If you can get a guy on a two-way that you develop into something, that can help jumpstart your rebuild or help provide a little bit more of a boost for your rebuild process. So that's what they're going to look to do here with Micah Potter.
Yeah, absolutely. Potter got a little bit of the taste of the NBA last year with the Detroit Pistons on a call up. He's big. He's 6'10". He played at Wisconsin, I believe, in college. Kind of stiff a little bit, but he can rebound, set some screens. He can do some stuff as far as an offensive player goes. So good, two-way guy. He's going to join Johnny Juzang from UCLA as the other two-way player for the Jazz. But you're absolutely right. When you're not a very good team, you should be cycling through the bottom of your roster as much as possible. I always point to the Brooklyn Nets. They did a great job with that, and that's how they got Joe Harris and Spencer Dinwiddie, two guys who ended up being very key parts of that team as they turned into a good team. Just by kind of saying, all right, these guys were cast off by other places, didn't really show up there. Well, let's give them a shot and see. And they both developed into, pretty good players with the Nets and eventually get themselves paid. So yeah, I'm all for this. Keep cycling through, guys.
Absolutely. All right. That will do it for today. Again, make sure you are subscribing to the NBA Front Office Show over on our YouTube channel. And of course, if you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, again, make sure you're subscribed and give us that 5-star rating and review. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.